On the 2nd of September 2025, Emmanuel Macron shocked the world with his speech on Africa. Standing before an audience in Paris, he declared, "Africa has no future without France. Left alone, its people descend into chaos." His words dripped with contempt. He reduced an entire continent to something less than human. But at that very same moment, on African soil, history was being rewritten. In Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, the unthinkable happened. The CEOs of the world's most powerful foreign mining corporations, men once seen as untouchable, were arrested. Behind this bold act stood one man, Ibrahim Traoré, the fearless leader of Burkina Faso. His message was clear. Africa would no longer bow to foreign powers. Africa would not tolerate the arrogance of leaders like Macron. How was this possible? How did the most powerful CEOs of billion-dollar mining companies suddenly end up in jail? Could this moment be the real start of Africa's fight for true independence? If you want more untold and powerful stories from Africa, make sure to subscribe. What happens next? You do not want to miss. Here is how it all went down. It was 6 a.m., the 3rd of September. The streets of Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, were just beginning to stir. But behind closed doors, special forces were already in motion. In 7 luxury hotels across the city, elite officers knocked. Then they moved in fast. One by one, they arrested the CEOs of the world's biggest mining companies. James Miller, head of Goldmax Corporation, was among the first. Right after him, David Wilson, CEO of Canadian Western Gold Mining. Then Michael Brown, from Australia's Pacific Resources. This was not coincidence. This was not chaos. This was a masterstroke, planned to perfection. President Ibrahim Traoré had been preparing for months. First, he ordered a full audit of every foreign mining operation in the country. Then, he built a legal task force, experts in international finance, criminal law, and resource policy. What they uncovered was staggering. Over 40 years, these companies extracted more than $700 billion in gold from Burkina Faso's soil. But only $7 billion reached the national treasury. The rest vanished. For 6 months, not a word leaked. Traoré's team worked in the shadows. They planted informants at mine sites. They used drones for high-resolution images. They even pulled satellite data to confirm production volumes. And the truth was worse than anyone imagined. Some companies reported production as low as 10%. That is right. 9 out of every 10 ounces of gold were smuggled out, hidden from the books, stolen from the people of Burkina Faso. What happened next changed everything. Traoré did not mince words. He stood before the nation and the world and said it plainly. Gold ripped from our soil by the blood and sweat of our people is sitting in European vaults. Meanwhile, my people starve. That ends now. His warning to the mining executives was cold and sharp. Return what you stole, or spend the rest of your life in prison. And it was not just talk. The arrests were swift, surgical, intense. James Miller, CEO of Goldmax, was arrested at his hotel in his pajamas, without having time to call security. John Anderson tried to escape on a private jet but was intercepted and arrested on the way to the airport. Michael Brown was caught in the middle of a meeting while trying to move assets out of the country. His computer became crucial evidence. No one escaped. Traoré was well prepared. He had asked the companies to submit 10 years of financial records. He also invited international experts to investigate. For months, they combed through every line, every loophole, every hidden deal. What they found was staggering. Take Goldmax Corporation, for example. From 2017 to 2024, the company pulled out an estimated $500 million in gold from the Topico mine. But when tax season came, they paid only $6 million to Burkina Faso. Why? Because only 10% of their actual production was ever reported. They were extracting 10 tons of gold a day, but on paper, they logged just 1. The other 9 smuggled, hidden, gone. For decades, this was the system. Riches out, poverty in. But now, for the first time, it was the billionaires who were cornered. Western Gold Mining thought they were clever. Their trick? Fake invoices. On paper, they sold bars of gold worth $60,000 for just $10,000. The difference quietly moved into offshore accounts. Invisible money. Untaxed. Untraceable. But that was nothing compared to Pacific Resources. They pulled one of the most bizarre scams Traoré's investigators had ever seen. They used their own workers' paychecks as a tool for tax fraud. Here is how it worked. On the books, miners were earning 10 times more than what they actually received. The company then claimed those inflated salaries as tax deductions. They pocketed the fake expenses as profit. But Traoré was not buying it. He sat with the paperwork himself, page by page, reviewing, highlighting, stamping, filing. He was building a legal time bomb, and when it exploded, it would not just expose financial fraud, it would reveal a web of corruption so deep, it reached the highest levels of government. That is where the real story begins. Behind closed doors, secret deals were made, handshakes sealed with briefcases full of cash. In 2017, Marc Karba, Burkina Faso's Minister of Energy, took a $50 million bribe from Goldmax Corporation. In exchange, the company's tax rate was cut from 30% to just 3%. That one crooked deal cost the country $2 billion every year. But it got worse. In 2019, Western Gold Mining paid $100 million in bribes to Francois Karber, the brother of then-President Roch Karber. In return, they secured 3 new gold mining licenses, all on lands owned by local villages. The result, 50,000 people were forced from their homes, families uprooted, communities erased. Now ask yourself, if that land was your home, if your grandparents were buried there, what would justice mean to you? Comment, Amen, if you stand with Traoré. He had seen enough. With ironclad evidence in hand, Traoré filed formal charges at the International Criminal Court. His case, that these companies had committed crimes against humanity, forced displacement, child labor, mass environmental destruction. And guess what? The court accepted the case. Now, the world is watching. Justice is no longer a hope. It is in motion. Then came Traoré's boldest move yet. He did not stop at arrests. He froze every bank account tied to foreign mining companies. He seized their local assets. And most importantly, he placed every ounce of gold reserves worth over $100 billion under full state control. That gold now belonged to the people of Burkina Faso, not to foreign billionaires, not to silent partners overseas, to the people. The world responded immediately and loudly. The story hit every major headline. Western media branded Traoré a dictator. The European Union called an emergency session. The United States issued stern warnings, thinly veiled threats. Traoré stood firm. For 50 years, these companies broke our laws, dodging taxes, exploiting land, abusing people. Now they're being held accountable. We're not afraid of Western threats. Across Burkina Faso, the people rallied behind him. In Ouagadougou, hundreds of thousands marched, chanting, "Our gold is ours." Farmers, miners, teachers, all united for the first time. Hope returned to the mining villages. Amadou Sawado, a 65-year-old miner, said through tears, "Europe got rich from my gold, but my kids still can't go to school. Now, someone is fighting for us." Meanwhile, once powerful CEOs sat in hot, crowded prisons. James Miller of Goldmax began a hunger strike. Traoré replied, "Our miners go hungry every day. Now you understand." John Anderson of Western Gold offered $1 billion in bail. Traoré laughed, "You stole $500 billion. That money was ours." Michael Brown faked a heart attack. Doctors proved he was fine. His act became evidence of obstruction. Others faced serious charges. Robert Mackenzie of Continental Gold forced displacement. James Harrison of African Minerals child labor. Peter Williams of Global Mining Co-op environmental destruction. David Anderson of Summit Resources funding armed groups. Then the trials began. A new court fair, international, and free from Western influence heard the cases. 7 judges from Africa, Asia, and Latin America oversaw justice. Miller faced 77 charges. Anderson faced 89, including forcing children as young as 12 to work 16-hour shifts underground. Most died before age 15, lungs destroyed, hope lost. But now, justice had finally come. And then came the darkest charge yet against David Wilson of Pacific Resources. Hess had knowingly approved the use of cyanide-based mining that poisoned 3 major rivers. The chemical runoff did not just poison the land. It poisoned people. In 17 villages, cancer cases surged tenfold. Over 2,000 people had died from drinking, bathing, or farming with contaminated water. The courtroom fell silent when the victims began to speak. Not facts, not figures. Real people, real pain. These were not just case files or statistics. They were sons and daughters, mothers, fathers, survivors, and for the first time, their stories once buried, once ignored, were spoken out loud, under oath, for the world to hear. Musa Ouagadougou took the stand first. He started working in the mines at just 8 years old. Now 23, he struggles to breathe every day from chronic lung disease. Fighting through tears, he said, "They stole my childhood. They stole my health. They took everything. My strength, my future, my life." Then came Mariam Koulibaly, a 70-year-old woman. Her hands trembled. A faded scarf wrapped around her head. Her village had been wiped off the map, evacuated, bulldozed, erased to make way for gold mining. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Our ancestors are buried on that land. Our family homes stood there. They didn't just move us. They destroyed everything for gold." She paused, her lips trembling. "And what did we get in return? $100. She broke down. "Just 100. Meanwhile, the gold beneath her land was worth billions. Through it all, Ibrahim Traoré sat quietly in the courtroom, not hidden behind a desk, not tucked away in an office. He was there every day, in the front row, with his people, listening, watching, unshaken. He looked the accused men straight in the eyes, and outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters, he spoke clearly, with purpose. "This isn't just about Burkina Faso. This is about all of Africa. If we can stand up, if we can hold them accountable, then maybe, just maybe, other nations will rise too." And he was right. The world was watching. Across the continent, leaders began to pay attention. Traoré's bold stance sent shockwaves across Africa. What started in Burkina Faso quickly turned into a domino effect. In Mali, President Amadou launched a formal investigation into foreign mining giants. In Guinea, Mamadi followed suit. In Niger, Abdul Karim Keita tore up multiple shady mining deals. One after another, the old exploitative contracts signed in secret, behind closed doors, began to crumble. Western mining giants went into full-blown panic mode. Stocks plummeted. Goldmax Corporation lost over 70% of its market value almost overnight. Western gold mining barely hung on. Pacific Resources was forced to shut down all operations across Africa. The chaos spread beyond the continent. In Europe, government buildings went into crisis mode. Closed-door meetings, hushed phone calls, emergency memos. And then the threats began. French President Emmanuel Macron went public furious. "You'll pay for this," he said. "You don't get to touch our investors." But Traoré did not flinch. He fired back without hesitation. "Say colonizers, not investors. Real investors are welcome. Thieves in suits? Not anymore." Then came President Joe Biden, adding more pressure. He warned of sanctions, threatened to cut U.S. financial aid to Burkina Faso. Traoré laughed. "Which aid? The 100 million you give a year? We will make 10 billion every year from our own gold. Keep your aid. Give it to your puppet states." Back in the courtroom, the truth kept unraveling. Investigators uncovered internal emails, pulled directly from company laptops, and what they revealed made it clear. These executives weren't just corrupt. They were cold, calculated, fully aware of the damage they were causing. The world was now seeing their true faces, not the polished smiles from press conferences, but the raw, ugly greed behind the gold rush. At Goldmax Corporation, the truth came out in leaked emails. In private, their executives called the people of Burkina Faso stupid natives. One message even bragged, "We can make them do anything for a few million in bribes. They dance for dollars." Western gold mining was even more twisted. Their internal chats referred to child laborers as nothing more than cheap labor. Then came a line that froze the courtroom. "Why pay $100 to one adult when you can give $10 each to 10 kids and they never complain?" Those words, written by CEO John Anderson. Pacific Resources did not even try to hide its crimes. Their memos laid out step-by-step instructions for dumping cyanide waste straight into rivers. One document coldly stated, "No one will notice. These people don't live long anyway. Even if they die of cancer, they won't know who to blame." At Continental Gold, executive Robert Mackenzie described forcing thousands of villagers off their land as a necessary sacrifice for progress. James Harrison of African Minerals brushed off deadly mine accidents as acceptable losses, and Peter Williams from Global Mining Co-op dismissed an environmental disaster by writing, "Nature will heal itself eventually." When Traoré read these files, he did not shout, he did not storm out, but his hands shook. He closed the folder slowly, looked straight ahead, and said in a calm, steady voice, "Now you see what they really think of us. To them, we're disposable. But that ends today. The game is over." Then came the moment the world had been waiting for. Month 6 of the trial. The courtroom was packed. No one dared to breathe. The air was electric, humming with something bigger than tension. It felt like justice was finally about to speak. And it did. The verdict. Guilty. Every single one of them. The courtroom's final decision sent shockwaves around the world. Viktor Petrov, CEO of Goldmax, 50 years behind bars, and a staggering $10 billion fine. James Miller of Western Gold, 45 years, and $8 billion in penalties. Michael Brown from Pacific Resources sentenced to life in prison. His crimes were too dark to ignore. Environmental destruction that poisoned rivers, sickened villages, killed thousands. Robert Mackenzie of Continental Gold, 40 years, for ripping families from their homes. James Harrison, who used children in deadly labor, 55 years. Peter Williams, who oversaw massive environmental devastation, 60 years. And David Anderson, the executive who funneled money to armed militants, life without parole. But then came a twist no one saw coming. The court did not just hand down prison time, it took everything from them. Gone. Their yachts, their beachside mansions, their private jets, offshore accounts, luxury art collections, all seized by the state. And the final blow. The court ordered that all money from the sale of those assets would go directly to the families of their victims, not to the government, not to corporations, to the people. Then, standing tall on the courthouse steps, President Ibrahim Traoré addressed the world. His voice did not tremble. It did not rage. It carried the weight of history. "Today," he said, "we did not just put 7 men on trial. We put 500 years of colonial theft and exploitation on trial. And today, we won." This is the start of a new chapter for Africa. From this moment forward, our land, our gold, our future belongs to us. Our people will finally get what is rightfully theirs. But Traoré was not done. Not even close. He moved fast. Lightning fast. Every last asset owned by the foreign mining giants was seized. No loopholes. No delays. It was over for them. Then came the next bold move. He launched the Burkina Faso National Mining Company, a state-owned powerhouse designed to take full control of the country's gold, not for foreign banks, not for CEOs, for the people. And the people saw the change almost instantly. 70% of the company's revenue was funneled directly into schools, hospitals, roads, and clean water. This was not just a promise, it was a revolution. In the mining regions, once forgotten and broken, hope returned. Schools rose where children once dug through dirt. Clinics and hospitals replaced dust and despair. Workers' salaries skyrocketed from $50 to $500 a month. Child labor gone, banned for good. New safety standards world-class. Protective gear, training, inspections. Everything foreign companies refused to give, Traoré delivered in months. The results were jaw-dropping. Fatal accidents in the mines dropped to zero. In the streets, people did not just cheer, they sang his name. Children danced barefoot in joy. Mothers cried tears they had buried for decades. Elders raised their fists in pride. Traoré brought back our gold. He is one of us. Festivals lit up every village. For the first time in living memory, people were not just surviving, they were dreaming. Yes, Western media tried to smear him. They called him a dictator, a populist, a threat, but on the ground, the truth was visible everywhere. The economy exploded. Unemployment plummeted. Poverty rates dropped at record speed. And the numbers told a story no one could deny. A 300% increase in national income in just 1 year. 500 new schools, 200 hospitals, 5,000 kilometers of paved roads, electricity to more than 2,000 villages, clean water for over 3 million people. This was not just reform, it was a renaissance. Traoré did not just take back the gold. He rewrote the future. He returned dignity to those who had been voiceless for generations. The revolution in education was nothing short of game-changing. Technical universities popped up in every mining region. For the first time, young people did not have to leave their homes to chase careers as engineers, geologists, or chemists. They could train where they lived, surrounded by family and culture. And get this, 10,000 students enrolled, all fully covered by scholarships, not a penny out of their pockets. But the ripple effect did not stop at Burkina Faso's borders. Across Africa, things began to shift. In Mali, 5 mining CEOs were arrested. In Guinea, the government took back control, nationalizing bauxite mining. In Niger, uranium mines went fully state-owned. A fresh wind was sweeping across the continent. Africa was waking up. At a massive rally in the capital, Traoré stood before thousands and said, "We are not enemies to anyone." He smiled, then added with steady conviction, "Our doors are wide open to any country that wants to play fair and trade honestly." But make no mistake, the era of exploitation is over. Africa's resources belong to its people. It is that simple. It is that final. No one can change it back. While the people thrived, while hope grew, those former CEOs, they were rotting in prison cells, forgotten by the world they once controlled. The newspapers stopped writing about them. The markets stopped caring about them. Their phone calls went unanswered. Their power, once so absolute, now reduced to nothing more than a memory. Their empires crumbled, companies folded, bankers who once lined up to finance their projects turned their backs. Lobbyists who once whispered in Western parliaments walked away in silence. Goldmax Corporation, the giant that once dominated West Africa, completely collapsed. Thousands of its assets seized. Its headquarters auctioned off to pay debts. Its logo, once a symbol of power, now nothing more than scrap on abandoned billboards. Western gold mining, once the pride of Canada's mining empire, was bought out by a small, unknown company. A company with no ties to government, no political muscle, no protection. In one move, decades of influence disappeared. Pacific Resources, the so-called shark of Australian gold, was dismantled piece by piece. Mines closed. Machinery sold at discount. Entire divisions liquidated just to cover unpaid loans. What once looked invincible turned to dust in less than a year. What Ibrahim Traoré did was not just news. It was history in the making. For the very first time, an African leader stood tall, unshaken, relentless, a wall of steel against Western greed. And he won. From that day forward, nothing was the same. The people of Burkina Faso stopped watching from the sidelines. They were no longer helpless witnesses. They were living the change. Their gold no longer vanished into foreign vaults. Instead, it built schools in their villages, hospitals in their towns, roads cutting through their mountains. In Ouagadougou, new hospitals opened their doors, offering free treatment to families who had once walked for days just to see a doctor. In rural Ouagadougou, classrooms filled with children holding books for the very first time. Bridges connected markets that had once been cut off during the rainy season. Children were no longer choking on dust deep inside dark, dangerous mines. Instead, they were breathing clean air. They were reading books. They were kicking soccer balls on open fields. They were learning to dream bigger than ever before. Workers were no longer scraping by on crumbs. They earned enough to build homes. They earned enough to put food on the table every single night. They earned enough to live with dignity, real dignity, for the first time in living memory. But Traoré's fight did not stop at Burkina Faso's borders. It crossed oceans. It crossed continents. It sparked something in the hearts of people from Latin America to Asia, from the Middle East to the Caribbean. Everywhere injustice had dug in its roots, people now had a reason to hope. In South America, leaders spoke of taking back oil and lithium reserves from foreign corporations. In Asia, farmers marched demanding fair prices for their land. In the Middle East, voices rose against corruption that fed on resource wealth, while ordinary people starved. Movements rose. Flags went up. Old songs of resistance were sung again in crowded streets. Voices once silenced found the courage to speak. And slowly, but surely, Traoré's faith was proven right. Justice always finds its way. Sometimes late, sometimes quiet, sometimes loud like thunder. But it never fails to arrive. The old system built on stolen wealth and quiet violence was breaking apart. Africa stood tall. For the first time in centuries, Africa looked the world in the eye without fear. And this time, nobody would take its resources again. Not because of luck, not because of charity, but because the people were awake, because leaders like Traoré were fighting, because everything had changed. But the story does not end here. Every sunrise, Traoré wakes up ready to take another step. One step closer to a freer Africa. One step closer to dignity. One step closer to full sovereignty. And one day soon, the whole continent will be truly free. Its wealth will not be signatures on shady foreign contracts. Its wealth will not be smuggled in the shadows of cargo ships. Its wealth will not be hidden in offshore accounts. It will be the birthright of its children. It will be the food on their table, the roof over their heads, the future in their hands. That day is not far off. And when it comes, no power on earth will be able to turn it back. Because the truth is simple. Once a people wake up, they never fall asleep again. Traoré showed the way. Now the people are walking it. Has this story touched you? If it has, we want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. Tell us how you feel. If you believe in justice, in dignity, in a rising Africa like this video, share it with your friends. And subscribe to stay on this journey with us. Because the story of Africa is no longer written in foreign capitals. It is written here, in the hearts of its people, in the courage of its leaders, in the soil that carries the gold, the diamonds, the oil, and the future. We will see you in the next story, where the truth keeps rising.